Welcome in everybody to the 2025 Los Angeles Rams NFL season preview. I am excited to talk about this team. This is obviously a team that a few years ago won the championships, continued to try and stay within the playoffs, and now feels like it's going for one last ride with some of the veteran additions that they have made. The reality situation with their quarterback maybe dealing with some things as far as his back injury, of course, when it pertains to Matthew Stafford. And the reality situation is they have two first round picks in next year's draft, in which they could be targeting a brand new quarterback as well to start a new era of Los Angeles Rams football. But focus is on 2025, in which Sean McVay, in my opinion, an A-plus coach in the National Football League, the best of the best. I only have one other coach theoretically over him, and that would be Andy Reid. But I think Sean McVay is awesome, and I don't think that anybody should really dispute that either. And this front office has continued to prove that it's one of the best in the National Football League. I got it with the A- grade as well, with the talent that they continue to put around the rest of the roster, making sure that they make the right moves at the right times to keep this team competitive. And I got to give them a lot of credit for the way in which they built this team. I'm extremely excited, really, on both sides of the ball to see what they have this year upcoming. And so ultimately, we will get to the offseason in review. But like I said, Sean McVay, the offensive mind, the way in which he runs the team, consistently feeling like he's bringing a positive culture to the team. Maybe when things don't look all that great, he is able to kind of pull things together. This team got off to a really uneven start last year, and it didn't seem like it phased them. They knew what they had in their program, and they continued to work, and they made it obviously all the way to the divisional round. So, like I said, Sean McVay is one of the best in the business, and this front office continues to put out really good rosters and make shrewd moves to move into the next era, like I just mentioned. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the offseason review. Offseason review here. We're going to start with the subtractions. We got Cooper Kupp on the way out, obviously, longtime Rams, standout for what he's been able to bring to the table. Obviously, the lead wide receiver on that Super Bowl team. Demarcus Robinson, been a good depth wide receiver for them, wide receiver 3, at times, sometimes wide receiver 2, and stepped up really well after his tenure from the Chiefs, coming over to the Rams, had done a good job. Jonah Jackson out the door as well, traded to the Bears. Joe Noteboom off of that offensive line too. Michael Hoyt goes over to the Buffalo Bills as a defensive end, and then Bobby Brown off the defensive line as well. As far as the additions, the headliner starts out Mr. Davante Adams, a guy that had another really good season for the Jets when everything else was falling apart. Him and Aaron Rodgers were able to hook up still. He had top 15 fantasy wide receiver season as well. Poona Ford, a big addition from the Chargers to be able to help stop the run, an area in which the Rams really did struggle last year on defense. And it's understandable why they wanted to go out and target Poona Ford and what he brings to the table truly to help out this team. And I think that he is going to be truly a really big addition for what he does bring to the table as well. Coleman Shelton bringing in, seems like he's going to slide right in as far as the center position is concerned. This is a team that maybe had some interior offensive line question marks, and it makes sense why they would go out and get him. Nate Landman adding to the linebacker room too, might end up getting a starting role there too. We'll talk about that a little bit later as far as the roster review. As for the draft, like I said, traded out of the first round to grab a first round pick in next year's draft with the Falcons, then is able to take Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon, tight end that I liked a lot. In the second round, and ultimately I think he will end up being the starting tight end for this team, but we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Josiah Stewart adding to the edge depth on this team, which is crazy to say that as if they needed any more edge depth, but he will certainly help out as well. Jarquez Hunter, a running back that Sean McVay said to like a lot, and obviously he joins the backup with Blake Corum, who was drafted out of Michigan last year, and obviously Kyron Williams, who was the starter and did get a brand new contract extension before the year as well. Ty Hamilton adding to the defensive line depth for this team. And so as far as the expectations, like I mentioned at the top of the team direction, it feeling like one last ride. The team expectations, I do believe this team feels like it can be in the Super Bowl once again. And I want to say that maybe that's too high expectations, but I truly do feel like it's fair to place it there given kind of the age as far as Stafford and DAVANTE are concerned. I think they have a chance and they have what's necessary. But let's go ahead and talk about Mr. Matthew Stafford. So, as far as Matthew Stafford is concerned, I think it's interesting to discuss some of the things in which kind of got them off to a slow start. He didn't really deal with pressure well, and he's always had a little bit of issues, specifically as he got into the later part of his career, given the fact that he is such a statue in the pocket and he really has to beat defenses with his mind. And as you see with that amazing throw, with his eyes as well, and being able to move guys. And so, when the offensive line isn't secure in front of him, then they're going to have other issues. But this was a good indication. I think he got better versus the pressure a little bit later on in the season, and these are all playoff throws as well. Being able to throw the ball all over the field, but specifically to the intermediate areas while under pressure was a needed sign for where Stafford is at. And, I'm going to place him at 11 as far as my quarterback rankings. I want to say that his highs are much higher than that. He is a top 5 quarterback when he's on and at his best. And especially when the offensive line can keep him clean, then he's dangerous in the pocket with all the arm talent that he still has. And again, the mind for the game that he certainly has acquired over the years in playing. It really just comes down to, is he comfortable to be able to deliver the football? Ultimately, I think the big thing is adding Davante Adams is going to be a huge piece for what he can bring to the table in addition to what they already have in Puka. So we'll go ahead and talk about that aspect of it. But Matthew Stafford, when he's on, top 5 quarterback, 11th, just because some of the back issues and some of the pressure limitations at this stage of his career for him. But I love watching him play the quarterback position. It is a fun thing. And fortunately, I think that what you're going to see with Puka and Davante Adams in tow is going to be him at his best more often than not for the upcoming season. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the roster. So as far as the roster is concerned, like I talked about, it really comes down to what the offensive line looks like. Rob Havenstein, a mainstay on this right tackle position for a long time. Kevin Dotson, also kind of secure in that right guard position. Like I talked about, they brought in Coleman Shelton. Seems like he's going to be the guy at center moving forward as well. Steve Avila, actually, I thought has improved from where he was last year. Or I should say his rookie year to his second year last year. And now coming into his third year, can he improve even more? Would certainly help out. Then Alaric Jackson was a guy that was talked about a lot as possibly being a free agent, but ultimately got an extension from the Rams. He provided competent, a solid left tackle play for them. If he can grow even more, that would certainly be a big help. They also brought in DJ Humphries to add to the swing tackle room. Obviously, DJ struggled a little bit with health as far as the Chiefs were concerned last year. We'll see, if he gets on the field, and then what he looks like if that does happen. And then as far as the wide receiver room, they brought back Tutu Atwell on a nice 1 year, $10 million deal to be the kind of sacrificial deep threat on a consistent basis that could do a little bit of gadget stuff if you so ask. Puka Nacua is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, point blank period. Easily top 10 guy, and he can really produce some hyper efficient numbers when he's paired with Matthew Stafford. And then Davante Adams, like I talked about, had a really good year, for the Jets, even when things were falling apart there with him and Aaron Rodgers. I have no doubt that he will be able to work with Matthew Stafford as far as being able, the vets to really come, sync up and be on the same page on timing. And he is a efficient route runner. He is a detail-oriented route runner, and he is a guy that understands how to operate within the structure of an offense and do exactly what Sean McVay wants him to do at the exact time that Matthew Stafford needs him to do it so he can deliver the football. And then as far as the running back room, like I talked about, Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter, subsequent back-to-back round 3 and round 4 picks over the last 2 years. Now backing up Kyron Williams, who has taken over the starting job, gotten the extension, feels secure there. A good running back room as far as that is concerned, certainly. And then tight end room is interesting with Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee, kind of as the top 2 guys, obviously on the unofficial depth chart. I'll be honest with you, I think Terrence Ferguson is simply more talented than them. How quickly he can pick up the offense, how quickly does Sean McVay want to try and use him as a weapon is going to ultimately determine what it looks like. But I do think that there's a really good shot that he's the starter by the end of the season. With that being said, let's go ahead and get to the defense. Defense, a little bit of a different story here because the trenches are maybe a lot stronger than necessarily outside, and the skill position group is concerned. Speaking of the trenches, again, Poona Ford, massive signing for them, and I know it sounds crazy to say it's a massive signing. He was so good for the Chargers last year in stopping the run, and the Rams struggled so much with stopping the run. So now being able to add him as the true nose tackle in this odd front scheme, and then adding Kobe Turner and Braden Fix, who played with a little bit bigger as far as the 3-4 defensive end type of starting guys, it makes so much sense for what this defensive line looks like. And already this defense was so dangerous against the pass. So to be able to shore up that aspect of the run is going to be big for them. I like Braden Fix a lot. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. I like Kobe Turner a lot as well. Byron Young, Jared Verse. just such a dangerous young edge duo. Jared Versus is already, scratching the surface of top 10, if not already there as far as edge rushers in the National Football League. He came in with so much power from day one. It was really impressive. If he continues to take steps, then you're talking about a guy that can be a future top 5 edge rusher in the National Football League. I really like that. And then they add Josiah Stewart just for a little bit extra depth to make sure that room is secure. Omar Spates and Nate Landman is an interesting linebacker duo. Troy Reader also behind him. I'll be paying attention to Sean Dolak. For those that do not know, Sean Dolak, UDFA out of Buffalo, ended up essentially pushing a guy, Chris Paul Jr., Prue Paul Jr., out of Ole Miss, who was actually a draft pick for the Rams, off of the roster, and he currently ends up moving on to the Seattle Seahawks. Sean Dolak took his spot as a UDFA, which isn't surprising to me because he was one of the guys at the linebacker position I really liked coming out of Buffalo. So if he has the opportunity to continue to work and he's already pushed a draft pick off the roster, I think they have real plans for him in this defense in the immediate, and I would not be surprised to see that he would be the starting linebacker. You would imagine it depends on who they have the green dot on. I mean, it could be Nate Landman, it could be Spates. I think it's probably a little bit more likely to be Landman, and if it is Landman, then I think Sean Dolak as a compliment to Landman makes a lot of sense too. So we'll see, and that's something I'll be watching early on in the season. Cornerback room is a question mark, and I'll talk about this later. But Darius Williams hopes to be stepping up a little bit more as far as coming over from Jacksonville than he was a year ago in this Ram system as well. Akila Witherspoon, he is okay, a little shaky. Quinn Lake on the nickel, also shaky to say the least. They took a bet on Emmanuel Forbes to see if they could add some weight to him and get him to be better. We'll certainly see. And then Kobe Durant had his struggles as well. The corner is kind of a by committee, hope for the best position as far as the team is concerned. Obviously, the defense is built off of what that front seven looks like. And then as far as the safeties are concerned, I do like the safety combination. Cam Curl, Cameron Kitchens, a nice little young duo. I wouldn't say there's anything great about them, but they both complement each other well. And within the system, they work, effectively. So I gave actually both sides of the ball here a B+ for the Rams. There's potential for more based on where the secondary development comes from the defense and how the offensive line plays on the offensive side of the ball. So with that being said, let's get to my breakout player. So my breakout player this upcoming season is, in fact, Mr. 55 himself, Braden Fisk out of FSU. This was the guy I liked so much coming out of the draft. You saw that he plays with so much leverage going up against offensive linemen, but he has a cat-like quickness that is really hard for them to deal with. He's a bowling ball that really can shift his direction really quickly in a very agile manner that is impressive. Now, look, you ask him to two-gap, he's not going to be able to do that, but that's what Poona Ford is ultimately for. He was actually responsible for, I think, about 7.5 ultimate sacks for last season between regular and postseason. And he just has an ability to get into the backfield. And the way in which this Rams defensive line is taught to rush as well, different levels. Obviously, they are very smart in the way in which they try and contain quarterbacks and then get quarterbacks on the ground with quick pressure. It is very impressive. And he understands exactly what his role is, whether he's asked to contain, like you just saw right there, and then break back to be able to get a guy on the ground, or simply rush from the interior and be able to get some quick pressures as well, like you're going to see. And he can go through some guys. He can spin off guys. He has the ability for multiple things within his toolbox. And it is very fun to watch him play, especially along the entirety of this Rams defensive line. And the reality situation is they come at you in waves. They will use stunts and twists to confuse your offensive protection. They will take advantage of your protection plan, and they have the guys that can win one-on-ones, and Braden Fisk is a big piece of it. I am excited to see what Braden Fisk will look like, continue to rush next to a second-year Jared Verse and within this entire Rams defensive line. And they're going to ask him to step up now that Michael Hort has moved on to the Bills, certainly. So shout out to 5-5. I like watching him play, and he's my breakout player for the Rams this year. Let's get to what's got me excited. So I hinted at it a little bit earlier about what's got me excited for the Rams this year, and it comes down to Davante Adams. And I say this specifically because playing with Matthew Stafford, playing with PUKA NACUA, I think this is going to be the best environment that he has been in his career. I know people are going to be like, well, he had prime Aaron Rodgers. That is very true. Will not take that away. I'm not going to say he's going to set a career high, but the fact that PUKA NACUA demands so much attention from a team on a consistent week-to-week basis, now that he's going to get really one-on-one outside targets on a consistent basis, playing with Matthew Stafford, a quarterback that understands how to give him the ball on time and on target, man, I really think that Davante Adams is in for a really good season once again. And I think the entire, trio, as far as these guys are concerned, you talk about kind of the other fun trios in the National Football League, kind of, obviously Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins being the gold standard. Obviously, other people we expect Dak Prescott, C.D. Lamb, George Pickens to enter that conversation. This trio right here of Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, I expect is going to have a special season as well. So that's what's got me excited for the Rams. Let's get to my concern. So my concern is a little bit of a temporary one, or a mitigated one. The reason being is because his defensive line is so good, the cornerbacks don't tend to be exposed. If you have the offensive line that can kind of block it up and give them some issues, then you have a chance. And obviously, we saw a little bit of that the Eagles in the Eagles division round game. But even so, they still were able to get some pass rush. It was just really big. They couldn't stop the run in that game. And I think one thing that you can see, adding Puna Ford will help out this defense in that standpoint. But if you can block it up, you can get after these cornerbacks, and that's really going to be the biggest thing for me. Are they able to continue to have the defensive pass rush be at such a level that they can hide these cornerbacks, or can they also have a guy like Darius Williams get better, who is still kind of young in this league? Either one of those would be very, obviously key to being able to hide what is a weak cornerback room, in my personal opinion. So let's go ahead and get to my hot take. Does sort of relate to obviously Matthew Stafford here, pictured holding the Lombardi Trophy. You actually see Andrew Whitworth in the reflection. Didn't notice that before. Shout out to Andrew Whitworth, currently a commentator on Amazon Thursday Night Football. And my hot take is that the Rams are the best team in the NFC, if Matthew Stafford is healthy. And of course, last time that they were in the Super Bowl was 2021, in which they were able to win it in the Rams home stadium at SoFi. The Super Bowl is back in California this time, a little bit up the road, not a little bit, up in Santa Clara as well. So I think that this team really does have the potential to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Truly, I do feel like they have that potential with of how good this defensive line is, how good the linebacking core can be, in my opinion, if Sean Dolak really does step up as well, and how good this offense is, how explosive this offense is if Matthew Stafford is healthy and the offensive line plays well. So that's my hot take. We'll see if it ends up coming true, and if Matthew Stafford can get back to the game in February, if he can, hold up as far as what this team looks like. So with that being said, let's get to my predictions. As far as my predictions for the 2025 Rams, I'm a little bit hedging my bets. I did have the Niners at 11 wins. Ultimately, I'm going to have the Rams at 10-7. And a little bit of this is being conservative about my prediction, given the fact that Matthew Stafford's back is a question mark. And will they have to have Jimmy Garoppolo maybe step in for a game or two? I'm not entirely sure about that. So, but again, I think that their ceiling, it really does lie within getting to the last game of the season in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl. So that is how I feel. I got 10-7, could easily be higher in winning the division, but right now 10-7 and wild card is where I have the Rams. My bold prediction is that Puka and Adams both hit 1,000 yards. Matthew Stafford's health obviously pending, but again, I really do think it could be a special season for both of those guys as pseudo wide receiver ones for this team, in which they both can be incredibly dangerous against defenses. So thank you guys so much for joining me at DMW Sports here on YouTube. Please do like this video, watch the other ones to like them as well. We are close to the top 5 as the football season approaches very rapidly. We're here at DMW on Twitter and on TikTok as well. Sports DMW on Instagram. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.